I'm getting a little bit more of this. Dude, is this supposed to be that color?
No, no.
Honestly, this tastes awful. We are smack dab in the middle of some of the coolest events that we've seen outside of an anniversary. The Booster Fever event has a unique token that lets you exchange it for an item that doubles the drop rate of a rune or artifact of your choice for 24 hours. 24 hours is unheard of. The last time we saw an item like this, it was for 1 hour. So just keep that in perspective. So given that we should all be farming like crazy right now, well, you should always be farming like crazy, but especially right now, I think it's the perfect time to talk about the best monster for each dungeon in Cairos. We're gonna talk about them in the order that they appear in Cairos, and I'm gonna give you the main monster plus a couple honorable mentions. So starting in Giants here, our MVP monster, our MVM, is Veramos the Dark Ifrit. I'm so happy that I get to say this now. Veramos is here because of his auto cleanse on his passive, so he automatically removes the defense break, and max HP damage scaling on skill 2. Plus, it's recently come out that he is incredible on rage. Honorable mentions for this one are other max HP damage scaling units like his brother, Akamamir the Wind Ifrit, and the newly changed Wind Homunculus. Moving on to dragons now. The best monster for dragons is by far Verdile. When was the last time you saw a dragons team that didn't have Verd in it? I would reckon it's been a long time. Verd is a super valuable speed lead, and he boosts your whole team's attack bar by 40% every time he moves, because he should be critting 100% of the time, by the way. He's like by far the best one for this dungeon, but there are still a couple of honorable mentions that are worth talking about. For instance, Lauren, who is a super reliable defense breaker and stripper. There's also Spectra, who provides max HP damage, and he can reduce attack bars to keep those towers from cleansing the boss a little sooner. And the last one that I wanted to throw in, just for my own personal bias, it's Martina. If you have a Martina, she is so much fun to use in Dragons. You can use her in combination with Deva, the Light Chakram Dancer, for a super fun pairing that also has max HP damage scaling. But if you don't have Martina, then you're also not missing too much. You can just use Lauren or any other strip option. Let's head to see the Lich in Necropolis, where we're gonna meet Shaman, the Light Griffin. Preferably 2-A'd, by the way. Anytime that I name a monster that has a 2A available, you should reckon that I'm talking about the 2A. Shaman is an incredible damage dealer when you're specifically dealing with dark enemies, and the Lich is dark. Max HP damage on skill 2, and his passive makes it so the damage is increased by 100% here. Oh, he also heals on skill 1, which is super cool because if you're using team-up effects, that's gonna trigger that every time he groups up with whatever unit you're bringing. First honorable mention is Aster, the spicy sister to Lapis. She does something very similar to Shaman, actually. Then there's Raok, the Fire Inugami, who has a team-up effect, which can trigger the skill 1 heal off of Shaman. And even though there's more to talk about, the last one that I'm gonna mention now is the Water Cannon Girl. Notably, not Abigail, not the Awakened version, just the Water Cannon Girl. All of these outside of Shaman multi-hit to be, honestly, if you multi-hit, you're an honorable mention, dude. Yes, that's it. All you gotta do is hit a few times, you're an honorable mention. For the new Spiritual Realm, which also has an Abyss dungeon now, it's Seek the Fire Hellhound. I love when we all had the collective realization that Seek applies a crit rate buff. That was just such a cool keystone moment for Summoners War players. We were like, oh my god, this unit that we got right away at the start of the game is gonna help us with this new dungeon. Seek provides what we needed, which is enhanced crit rate. What a good dog. The honorable mentions for this one were actually a little bit difficult because they feature a lot of repeats that we've talked about already. For instance, Verd is here, Raok is here, Aster's here. The only newcomer that I just wanted to highlight too would be Brandia, the Fire Polar Queen. Huge damage from a fire unit, can't go wrong. We're going to the artifact dungeons now. For Steel Fortress, the best monster is Sath. Even though bosses in the Abyss dungeons are immune to dots, the dot team is still very much alive and well within the Steel Fortress. So you can bring Sath, and then you can bring any of the honorable mentions, for instance, Melia or Tatu, to complete your dot team. Heck, you can even use Verd here. Though if you're going for something that's like a little bit more of a traditional Steel Fortress comp, Second Awakened Zinc is also on the honorable mentions here though, because now he applies block beneficial effects on all of his skills. So I'd be remiss not to add him just in case you wanted to go for something a little bit more traditional. Punisher's Crypt, Verd, and Ikaru in Triplicate. If you have a Trickaroo team, you can use it here, and it's a great option, probably the best option. But if you don't have Trickaroo, then don't fret because you can still use some of the honorable mentions. Technically, the dot team does work here. It can tend to be a little bit more dangerous, but it's still worth it. So Sath, Melius, heck, even Rika. I would even go so far as to say like Joltan. Joltan applies dots thanks to his passive, and he's a dark tank. So that means the boss will focus the Joltan and hopefully leave the rest of your team alone. And because I said every Cairos dungeon, we're gonna briefly talk about the elemental halls. The best monster for every elemental hall except fire is Lucian. And then for the fire one, it's Verd. So there we go, that's the best monster for every dungeon in Cairos. Make sure that you're participating in the Booster Fever event. Pop those rune and artifact boosters while they're here because they are pretty juicy.